The U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Janine Pirro, is speaking about a federal judge blocking subpoenas in the criminal probe of Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell. So let's go to this live right now.
And around the world to gin up support for himself, all the while refusing to produce simple documents. Now enter local District Court Judge James Boasberg, whose written decision on its face makes clear his antipathy toward President Trump and this administration. He quashes both subpoenas, thereby prohibiting us from reviewing any records and precluding us from submitting records to the grand jury. That grand jury, of course, comprised of ordinary people. Ladies and gentlemen, no one is above the law. But for the first time, a judge is ruling that a grand jury subpoena, on its face legal in all regards, can be ignored because a judge thinks the subject is beyond reproach. This is a decision that is untethered to the law. It creates chaos where any defendant who wishes to evade an investigation, guilty or not, can allege I'm a victim, I'm being targeted, and therefore you cannot investigate me. And if you find the right judge, you'll buy it. This is the antithesis of American justice. Exonerating anyone without any records, without an investigation or question, is not how our criminal justice system works. This judge has put himself at the entrance door to the grand jury, slamming that door shut, irrespective of the legal process, and thus preventing the grand jury from doing the work that it does. So what is the law? What is the law? According to the United States Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, certainly higher than the court that Boasberg is on, a grand jury, every grand jury, has broad discretion to, quote, investigate merely on suspicion that the law is being violated, merely on suspicion the law is being violated, or because it wants assurance that the law is not being violated. In fact, the court says a grand jury may act on tips and rumors. Right here are the cases and the citations from the highest court in the land. And yet this judge is shockingly requiring the government to show something akin to probable cause, and those are his words, probable cause, in order to justify the issuance of a grand jury subpoena. Folks, probable cause is not and never has been the standard that prosecutors in this country need in order to go into a grand jury. This is not and has never been the law of the land. And so this decision today by Judge Boasberg runs directly afoul of our highest court's admonition that courts and judges must not and cannot saddle grand juries with mini trials and preliminary showings that impede a prosecutor's investigation and thus frustrate the public's interest in the fair and expeditious administration of justice. No one, folks, is above the law. And this outrageous decision will be appealed by the United States Department of Justice. Go ahead, sir.
Do you think that your office's failure to attempt to prosecute 6 members of Congress?
I'm not here to talk about 6 members of Congress. I'm here to talk about the fact that the grand jury has a job. They look at evidence. They decide whether they want to indict. If they don't indict, so be it. And if you want to know what the judge thinks, go ask him. Next question.
Can I get your reaction to statements from Senator Thom Tillis, who you know has been blocking and vowed to continue blocking?
Honestly, I don't know and I don't care, and I'll tell you why. I am in a legal lane. All of the rest is white noise. I don't care what they say. I have a job. I have the ability to go into a grand jury. There are questions that the American public and people in D.C. are entitled to know where $1 billion has gone, and that's my focus.
But he is asking for an assurance that the investigation into Powell has ended it. Are you willing to concede?
Did you hear what I just said?
Yeah, but is this...
I just said that this decision will be appealed by the United States Department of Justice. That's the answer to your question.
What crimes exactly are you investigating?
We're looking at 1001, and we're also looking at a statute having to do with fraud, but it's up to the grand jury to make that decision. We're $1 billion over in cost overruns. Are you kidding? $1 billion? We're not talking about huge buildings here. Go ahead.
Kevin Warsh is Trump's pick, though, President Trump.
I don't even know who he is.
So isn't this just essentially holding up President Trump's pick or any forthcoming picks since Senator Tillis said he will not vote?
Okay. I don't know how to explain this, but I'm going to try. I've been a prosecutor, a judge, a DA, and now a United States attorney for well over 3 decades. Politics is not the lane I'm in right now. And I have a charge and an oath to the Constitution. And my job is to present evidence, and I can do so when I can merely on the suspicion that the law is being violated, or even just because I want assurance that it's not. I'm not in those lanes. And I will not allow myself or my staff to be in those lanes. And that's why we brought crime down in this jurisdiction. We are focused on the law. We're focused on the people of the district. We are not focused on politics. Go ahead.
Judge Boasberg, in his opinion, said that you, quote, promptly complied, unquote, with President Trump's apparent direction to prosecute Powell. Can you just state for the public record, how did you have the idea or, the impetus to start this inquiry?
First of all, he's totally wrong in his assessment of the dates, and that's why we're doing a motion to reconsider, because he got his dates wrong. And as far as I'm concerned, this was something that was of public interest. It was something that the Senate Banking Committee wanted information on, and it is something within my jurisdiction and my charge. But I want to tell you a story. When I was a young prosecutor, I was one of the first people to investigate child abuse as a crime. Everyone thought it was a social problem and not a criminal justice problem. The kids are better off with their parents. There was an organization, and that organization didn't have a very good reputation. And it was one of the societies that was out there trying to prevent cruelty to children. And I set up a relationship where they would bring me cases. And people were outraged that I would deal with this organization. And my answer to them 30, 40 years ago, I'll deal with the devil. I'll take a case from the devil if you can give me information that will lead me to possibly find a crime. It doesn't matter where a case comes from. It doesn't matter. I can have a suspicion. I can read the newspaper. I can just want to make sure he didn't commit a crime. So don't make the judge is wrong on his dates. He is wrong. That's why we're not only appealing, we're making a motion to reconsider. Okay, I want to say one more thing, and I think it's important that you guys hear this from me. There's another way of looking at this, and that is that It's not just the public being fed up with this stuff. It's the fact that what we've got are grand jurors who are supposed to hear this, and they haven't been able to hear any of this because someone has decided that they're not entitled to hear this. Can you take this? Thanks. This process has been arbitrarily undermined by an activist judge. We have a process. We have been asking for information about a matter that has raised questions in many people's minds. Senate banking, the public, the papers, it doesn't matter. So give me the information so I can assess it. Give me the information so the grand jury, comprised of regular Americans, can say, there's nothing here. And I'll accept it the way I accept other cases. Okay? Whatever it is, we'll abide by it. What we don't accept is a judge standing in front of the door of a grand jury blocking our access, a role that has never been envisioned, a role that will now be used by other defense attorneys around the country, who's going to come in with a client and say, oh, my client is being targeted, don't you dare go in the grand jury. A judge says, yes, the guy's bathed and washed in immunity, and you can't go after him. The process should have been allowed to run its course, and it wasn't. And shame on them. Oh, cut it out. Do you know how many convictions we've got? Cut it out. You're in one lane. We have cleaned up this city. Oh, yeah, historic? Really? I'll tell you what's historic. What's historic is that I prosecute everything other than 10% of the cases, where the United States attorney before me didn't prosecute 67% of the cases. That's what's historic. I'm willing to take a not guilty. I'm willing to take a no true bill, because I'll take all the crimes and put them in. Thank you.